Welcome, friends and family. We're excited to have you back here at Honey Lake Clinic today. It's a little chilly out, but we've got a very warm-hearted guest with us today. Jessica Greenhalgh is, her official title is our Assistant Clinical Director. But Jessica does much more than that here at Honey Lake Clinic. She oversees and organizes all of our clinicians and therapists here at Honey Lake Clinic. And she herself has a wide knowledge and education about all things clinical and therapeutic. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much.
Very nice to have you here today. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where were you born?
Well, I'm from Tallahassee, Florida, which is just a stone's throw away. I grew up there, went to FSU for my undergrad and my graduate program, so I am officially a local person.
Yeah, you're one of our few locals because of where we are here at Honey Lake Clinic. We have therapists and staff from all over the country that come. Absolutely. But tell us a little bit about your growing up years. What does your dad do? What did your father do growing up?
Well, he is luckily retired at the moment, but my dad was a geologist and hydrologist, which means that he specifically looked at spring-fed bodies of water, including Honey Lake Clinic, as we are
By the way, friends, Honey Lake Clinic is one of the few spring-fed lakes in North Florida. So.
Yes, and then my mom she's done quite a few different things. She was a labor and delivery nurse for over 20 years at Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare. She also is a small business owner, and she works as a professor of nursing at FSU. Okay,
awesome. Tell us a little bit about your spiritual life growing up. Did you grow up in a Christian home, or where did you come to faith? Or
Absolutely. I think definitely a spiritual home. Christianity was a big part. I think there's a lot of different denominations in our family, and so it was important to my parents that I kind of find my own way.
Right.
So something that was really important was to go to a lot of different denominations.
Right.
So we actually live behind a Pentecostal church, and so seeing how they experience their faith, and also going to Southern Baptist, going to the Seventh Advent near us as well, going to just different places. So I think it was really important to them that I experience as many things as I could in order to really find where I feel the most called.
I think that's so important. We always try to put God in a box, right? I like what Rick Warren says. Trying to understand God is trying to like explain the internet to ants, right? We at Honey Lake Clinic here, we're a lot more about relationship than we are about religion, right? And but I did my biblical studies doctoral work at Catholic University.
Yeah.
And at Honey Lake Clinic here, our staff of 220, we have Anglicans, we have Baptists, we have Assemblies of God, and so again, Jess, I think with all the different modalities, all the different psychodynamics, all the medication, all the ways we use to heal people here, I would say more than anything, it's probably the staff and the way we love each other and the way we love our patients that probably draws patients to healing more than anything.
Absolutely. I think, it might sound cliche, but here at Honey Lake, we really are a family.
Right.
And especially in our clinical department, there's so much love and community in that. And I think that really corresponds with our patients, to meet them where they are at and to see, where can we, increase this? Where can we strengthen you and your beliefs and your love for Christ and also yourself? I think that's something that we're really seeing, even in our Christian family. How can I love myself? And I think that's something that a lot of people have struggles with.
I think so, yeah.
Is how do I prioritize my needs while still giving to others?
Most people feel guilty for taking care of themselves or for loving themselves. But the Bible says, the two major laws: love God, love your neighbor as you love yourself. We're built for trauma here. We live in a fallen world, and so a lot of our patients probably, they've been two people their entire lives. They've been the person they've tried to be to win love, to get respect from their family, from their church family, from their school, from their workplace. And then the person they really believe they are inside, those condemning, intrusive, guilt and shaming thoughts. And so for them to come here to Honey Lake Clinic and be loved for their authentic self.
Absolutely. One of my favorite nights is Wednesday nights, which is graduation night, which I am, of course, very, very fortunate to host. And I have such a wonderful time in that group because we get to hear how they have been affected as a whole. And one of the main themes that I hear time and time again is that it is the connection between our community,
right,
and how they have been able to be open and vulnerable and not judged here at Honey Lake, not only by the staff members, but also from their fellow patients,
right,
and to create those relationships and to develop, okay, how do I create healthy and secure attachments with people? How do I develop safe boundaries with people and practice those things? And they're able to practice it in a place of love,
yeah,
and in a place that it is encouraged, and how they can be open in their spiritual journey, where in a lot of places they're not able to be, but then they're also able to be honest and vulnerable about what am I truly experiencing and what am I struggling with, and not face that level of condemnation that they may face in the general world.
You mentioned the word attachment. A lot of people think about attachment in different ways, but I'm sure you meant in a therapeutic sense. We discussed attachment. Could you define that for us and what that means exactly?
Well, I think that there's a lot of ways to kind of define attachment. It's really about how we connect. So different attachments, you can connect with another person, you can connect with yourself, you connect with Christ. And what oftentimes we're seeing due to trauma, due to depression, anxiety, things like that, that the way that we've connected with people has shifted. So there's different types of attachment connections. There's secure, there's dismissive, and what happens...
But there's healthy and unhealthy attachments, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And with ourselves, with each other, and with God.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think there's sort of a revolution going on right now in theology and psychology. We call it sort of a neurotheology. Mm-hmm. And historically, especially within the evangelical world, it's been a lot of sin management. Trying to get rid of the sin in your life, trying to pull yourself up from the bootstraps, that kind of a thing. But that's moving away. If we want to get healthy, I think it's more about character development than it is about sin management. And I think what we're discovering, it's a lot more, or a lot less, we don't really change according to our beliefs. We really change according to who we love. And I think that means ourselves, each other, and of course, ultimately God. So, when we talk about the ultimate attachment, that would be our attachment to God, right? And I think in the same conversation we have what we call transference, right? And we tend to transfer relationships we've had in the past, good or bad, to the person we're in the present with, right?
Absolutely. And I think it also has to do with how we perceive ourselves and our self-worth. We definitely see that as, how do I connect with other people if I don't feel that I am worthy to connect? And we definitely see that when we're trying to process God's unconditional love and not being able to see, okay, well, if I have all these conditions and performance-based love on who I am and how I attach to other people, how do I shift that so that I can receive His love at its full glory and know that I was made with a purpose in His image?
Yeah.
And so I definitely think that that's how we are integrating attachment here, is how do I learn how to first know what attachment style am I with God? And also, how do I shift that to be a more healthy, secure attachment?
That's transformation, right?
Exactly.
That's transformation. How do we make that transformation from God as an idea, as a cognitive understanding, to God as a person we love? I think sometimes we have a hard time understanding God as as a person that wants to have a relationship with us.
Yeah, and I think that really goes into the difference between head knowledge and heart knowledge. And I think that a lot of times we have the cognitive ability. We have a lot of incredibly intelligent people who come here and who are here and who are struggling with this. And I think that's the question, is how is there that difference? And so it's getting from that I know him to be true and to him to love me, to I feel him to love me. I know.
We call that the longest 18 inches in the world. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so it really starts with the connection between, our cognitive being and our emotional self as well. And how do I integrate those two to where I know who I am and I can back that up with spiritual truth.
So what you're saying is we can understand something cognitively, but it takes a while for our emotions to catch up with that understanding. Is it more than emotion? What is it?
Well, and I think it looks differently for every person. And I think that's something that's really amazing about Honey Lake, is that we are very, very intentional on each individual person.
Right.
And there's no cookie cutter, which is such a blessing.
Yeah.
But it is finding out, okay, what is emotion? Some people have a really difficult time, especially if they've struggled with trauma in their past or depression, anxiety. It becomes difficult to discern, what am I feeling? And with that, that's kind of that first step is, okay, let me identify what am I feeling? Let me identify where I'm at right now so that we can create a plan that is most effective in the direction that you want to go, which is to have that relationship with Christ, to have that loving relationship with yourself, and to develop these attachments and these secure, healthy attachments with other people so that you can continue in that process and not create something that is going to really kind of tear at that inner self.
I mean, in order to know how you're feeling, you really have to come into the present. And I think most people are living in the disappointment of the past or the fear of the future. Very few of us are living in the present, and that's really all the life there is. I mean, even if we're promised an eternity, the only time to really enjoy life or experience life is in the present. What are some ways that you and your team use to get into the present?
Well, one thing that I personally do, and I tell this to patients every day, is I give myself a present every day. And I know it's around Christmas, and I'm terrible at wrapping.
I think it's kind of cool.
So it's not a physical present, but it's at least a moment in time every day to be fully present. So whether that be, I'm taking a sip of my tea and I'm just enjoying that, or I feel the sun on my shoulders and I just thank the Lord for his presence, or perhaps it's a song where you can fully envelop yourself. And I think as we develop those small moments of being fully present, it becomes easier and easier to check in with ourselves and to be honest with ourselves and have that level of self-reflection.
That's so good, yes.
Because I think at the end of the day, as much as I love helping people, I'm here to help them help themselves.
Right.
And the people who come here want help and they want to get better. And so we are here to help provide that and to give them a safe place to experience God's love in a therapeutic way.
I think most people feel guilty giving themselves that present. They feel like, if I really enjoy this cup of tea, or if I go for a walk, and there's so many other things I could be doing. How do you convince yourself that that's not the case?
So I think part of that self-care is prioritizing me. And that can feel like selfishness.
Yes.
But when, I was given the gift to help and to give and to see people. And so when I pedestal every other human that there ever walked, in the process I put myself lower. And so it's learning, are the pedestals that these other people on, are they realistic? Or do I need to put myself on a pedestal so I can be eye level? Because at the end of the day, we are eye level. And that's what God says, is we are all together in this one big, beautiful family.
Beautiful.
There's not these levels.
But Jessica, I could talk about this stuff with you all day. You're so wise beyond your years. But friends, we're going to take a quick break and be right back.
Hi, I'm Michaela from Tennessee, and I needed a place like Honey Lake because I had had a couple events in my life that had led me to this place of what I call the 3 Ds. So that's dishonesty, distrust, and despair. So I was going through these things. I got to the point where I didn't want to eat, I could hardly sleep, and I just needed somewhere to go and get some help. So what dishonesty meant for me is that I was dishonest about how I was doing and just kind of who I was in general with my family and my friends and people that love me. So I was also distressed. I wasn't really eating. I had lost a ton of weight in just a short amount of time. I wasn't sleeping well. I was starting to isolate from my friends, didn't really want to spend much time with much of anybody at all. Finally, the last D for me was despair. So that's where I was just absolutely just turned upside down. So I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and possibly bipolar disorder. My therapist helped me with just talking through these things that I had never said out loud to another person before. As far as medications go, I think it has been great. The thing that has most affected my healing and pushed me toward that direction was figuring out my relationship with the Lord, and how Honey Lake assisted me with that when I was struggling with just this crisis of faith is what I always refer to it as, is that I had staff members that were seeking me out, seeing me where I was at, praying for me every single day, just wrapping their arms around me and praying with me, and that was a really special experience. Some other things that helped were the nature walks that we did as groups with Dee. And then I also did some individual stuff with Dee. I think that she is a tremendous source of love and light on this campus. Also, we just had a ton of fun. At night, we would do fires. Everyone would just sit around and talk. All day long, you're going to programming and you're going to therapy and you're seeing your psych provider. But what made it really special for me was that you could come back to your cottage at the end of the night and you could sit down with your friends and kind of process through that stuff that you hadn't had time to talk about today. And it was a completely judgment-free zone, and you were just surrounded by love. I remember looking around so many times and just saying out loud, like, guys, we are so blessed to be here right now with each other. So in just 30 days, my therapist Samantha was able to get me to see that not only was I not terrible, but I'm actually pretty good. And the Lord has a really big plan for me. And for the first time, I feel like I'm seeing through clear eyes. I feel like my mind's clearer, and just that I can think and be in a way that I previously was not. Because in hindsight, I can see that my mind just was not functioning like it should have. But the Lord has a plan in that. So one verse that really helped me when I was going through the spiritual side of things and just trying to figure out where I was with that was Romans 8:18. And that verse loosely says, for I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory that will be revealed in us. God has a plan for me, a beautiful story that He is just writing in my life, and I cannot wait to see where He goes with it.
Welcome back, friends. Just thrilled today to have one of my favorite people, Jessica Greenhalgh, our assistant clinical director here at Honey Lake Clinic. And Jess, we were talking about something very interesting just before the break about this hierarchy we build within our own minds, within our relationships, and it really affects the way we see ourselves, the way we see each other, and the way we communicate, right? Give us a little bit of that understanding.
Well, and I think like we were talking about is if we feel that we're below someone, that is, we're going to, have that defense, right? Or we're going to feel like we can't match up.
Right.
When I talked about performance-based love, sometimes we put that on ourselves and we put that on other people. If I don't give you something, then I don't deserve the love in return.
It's very transactional.
It's very transactional.
Love is not transactional, right?
Not at all.
Right.
I joke that in Corinthians 13, there's nothing there that says love is what you do for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think when we talked about it is how do I see myself and how does that relate with other people? How does that relate with our Lord? When we have these hierarchies, we have too high, which can be very prideful, very narcissistic. When we go too low, then we have that depression, we have that lower self-esteem, self-image. And both of those interact with how we interact.
In the way we do things here with the individual and the group, how are you addressing so that people, number one, forgive themselves, live in the present, understand their feelings, and then are better able to connect and relate with other people?
Well, I think that is a very individualized question.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Right? But I think as a whole, it's really about allowing someone to see themselves the way that God sees us. And to take that time to shift that focus. A lot of times we're really good, especially in this society of boom, 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 I gotta take care, I've gotta do a lot of different things. And here at Honey Lake, it's our goal that we have to shift that paradigm. And how do I take care of myself? And so that is that first step, is how do I gain that awareness of what am I thinking, what am I feeling, what do I know to be true? And once I have that as a basis, I can grow from there. I can look at, okay, what are the lies that I tell myself because of depression, of trauma, of, all the diagnostics that occur. But truly, what do I believe about myself? And that kind of goes back to that head to heart knowledge.
Right.
If I know that I was created in God's image for a purpose, but I feel that there's something wrong with me, or I should have done something different, or my self-worth is not what everyone else's is, then there's always going to be that conflict.
What you're saying is it's the truth that sets us free. And sometimes the hurt of our past so taints the truth, right? But when you can come to a place like this and meet total strangers that really don't want anything from you and you don't want anything from them, but directed by a therapist like yourself that's able to get down in there deep and put that mirror up against us, the good things and the bad things. I think we're always more likely for some reason to believe the bad things about ourselves than the good things we hear about ourselves.
And I think, when we talked about earlier, there's kind of this two-sided. There's two people that we're doing. And one of those is that mask that a lot of times people wear as a survival mechanism.
Right.
If I learn how to smile and say, yes, I'm fine, that at a certain point, we're like, well, why does no one question it?
Yeah.
And we've gotten really good, but under that mask, we realize that I'm not fine.
Yeah.
And so taking that time, which it's a very difficult thing to do, is take off the mask in front of other people in that vulnerability of how are they going to perceive me? How are they going to interact with me? Right. Is there going to be judgment? Is there going to be hurt? And to come here and to know that there's a safety level. Right. There is that confidentiality. There's also the fact that what happens here, you've come here for a reason.
We're like Las Vegas in that sense.
But to have that where, we're brothers and sisters in Christ. And so we're all here on this same field. Yeah. And that your sins and my sins, there's not a hierarchy. Right. And that I love you for who you are. And I know you've been through something. I might not even know what it is, but I know you've been through something. And so I encourage patients, every day to, check in with themselves. How comfortable are you with sharing your story? Because they're not under any obligation to. Right. But to check in with themselves, because then that reprioritizes their needs. Right. And what do I need? And then when they have that safety, they can share.
We here at Honey Lake Clinic, we have a curriculum that we're putting together that lasts a year after the patient discharges or graduates. And more than anything, our patients meet within a group of 6 weekly for an entire year. And the content that we're teaching is great during that year, but more than anything, I think what we're trying to do is keep that connection, keep that authenticity, trying to teach our patient what it feels like to ride the bike. Because then once you get out in the real world and things start bombarding you, it's so easy to slip back and put that mask back on. And you forget how good it feels to walk in that freedom. But again, learning how to forgive ourselves. We don't have the power to do that. We have to ask for Christ through His power and the power of the Holy Spirit to really make that true. But that's really a daily process, isn't it? It
is. It's definitely a daily process. And one that, I think is wonderful is that you get to see people while they're here make that decision and go from that I want it to, I'm going to, and I'm learning how. I'm learning how to forgive myself. I'm learning how to see myself through the Lord's eyes. And when we see ourselves in that way, we can take away some of those things.
Yeah.
I think that there's a big difference between acceptance and forgiveness. And some of the things that we've done, we learn how to accept our past, and we've learned to accept, but at the end of the day, we've been forgiven. Before we took breath, we've been forgiven.
Yeah.
And so it's, how do I allow myself that same level of commitment and love, and how do I enact it, and how do I share it with other people?
Yeah. I think so much of what we do and so much of how we live our lives, Jess, is to impress people, to get the love that deep inside we know we need. And the way we try to get love and the way we try to connect is so tainted by the culture we live in. And really trying to understand how we acquire that. So much, there's those people that try to acquire it through things. I drive a Ferrari, I wear a Rolex, I live in a huge house. That's the way I'm going to get you to respect me, and I see that as love. That's a lie. Or there's people that say, oh, well, I'm not going for things, I'm going for experiences. I'm going to experience these different things. And I think that's probably a little closer to the truth. I think we get to know ourselves better through experience than we do through things, obviously. But what is that core practice? What is that core discipline that allows us every day? I know some people use meditation, mindfulness, I know, but just understanding, being able to, take all that garbage, all that guilt, all that shame, and dump it where it belongs, which is at the cross of Christ, and say, hey, devil, you're right. I'm never going to be perfect in this lifetime. But you know what else is just not a conversation we're going to have anymore? I mean, you want to have that conversation? You're going to have it with Daddy. He's the sovereign God of the universe. He loves me more than I love myself. He knows me far more. He knows me better than I know myself. He loves me far more than I love myself. But let me ask you this question. The average length of stay here at Honey Lake Clinic is about 43 days. Is that enough to really do something important and transformational in our lives?
Absolutely. I think that, no, it is not an end-all be-all. It is a foundation and a process to your healing. But absolutely have I seen transformations. Absolutely have I been witness to people changing their perspectives on themselves and changing their perspective on how they can be who they are.
Right.
And I think that it is something that can be done. Now, to put a time limit on it is very difficult,
Right.
And everybody has their own pace. And so we try to take that into account. Each person individualize. Us as a treatment team, we talk about what's your progress? What do we still need to do? What can we still achieve while you're here? And so that's really important to us. But absolutely, do I see transformation happen? Will I see it continue when they continue? When they get to go home, when they get to implement the skills that they learn, when they have that connection in the alumni groups, continue on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I love what you said, Jessica, at the beginning of our conversation today, that, when you come to Honey Lake, more than anything, you're joining a family. We are a missional family. And I just tell people, I'm the patient that's been here the longest, right? It's so wonderful to be surrounded by this healing place all the time. But friend, if you're struggling today, or you have a loved one that's struggling, we're available 24/7. We're here to help in any way we can. Jess, thank you so much for all the work you do here. You're such a wonderful, beautiful young lady. Congratulations on your recent marriage.
Thank you.
You are a huge part of our family here at Honey Lake Clinic. And friends, please join us again soon. We love you. God bless you.